All right. We are recording. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Arayeh, your rapid transformational coach in conscious parenting, personal development, and relationships. I have only one mission, and that is to empower you to live your authentic self and your full potential with ease, grace, and joy. And today I have a special guest. Dr. Shawne, I'm so excited. I'm so sorry about the Facebook Live, and you're my first guest, but I'm just, thank you for bearing with me. You're so gracious. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about forgiveness. And I have a very controversial opinion about this word, but we're going to get to it later. But at this time, I really want you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to be this amazing Emmy Award winner, 6 times Emmy Award winner. Tell us a little about yourself. Who's Dr. Shawne, and what's your passion and your mission and your vision?
Oh, got it. So I am Dr. Shawne. I have a company, I have a training agency, and it's called Shawne TV. We really focus on high pressure communication. And we're very unique because the trainings that we do are really progressive. So in business, we take risks all the time. And our game is taking risks as a leader, and how quickly can you forgive yourself, pick up the pieces, and try the next step or the next right thing. So forgiveness is a big deal to me. And out of our company, I created Project Forgive. And that's how you and I met, was through Project Forgive. And our commitment at Project Forgive is to blast stereotypes and myths around forgiveness, like forgive and forget. We just go forgive and forget. No, it doesn't work that way. We look at very enlightened or transformational ways to approach forgiveness, that it's as unique as each one of our fingerprints are. So forgiveness is a big part of who I am and what I believe in. And I also believe that whatever you teach is what you need the most. And so forgiveness is it for me, man. I'm stuck with forgiveness till the day I die, because that's where I have the most excitement in my life and the most passion is around the conversation of forgiveness.
I love that. Like, look at me. Like, all my stuff is about joy, the art of living in joy. Like, that's my thing. I want to live in joy. And that's exactly, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something that just caught my eye. So the first thing you said, forgive yourself. So that's the most important thing, right? Because I believe all love is self-love, and all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And you just touched on that so quickly, right?
Yeah. When you forgive yourself, that's when your world opens up. And it really is about forgiving yourself for judging someone or thinking they're a jerk or you got betrayed, something really valid. When you can do that forgiveness piece, it doesn't mean you become a doormat, not even close. It allows for boundaries. To me, forgiveness and boundaries go together. And if you're being violated in some way, especially someone that you love, maybe it's a cousin or an aunt or an uncle or a spouse, and they keep doing the same behavior over and over, that is not, to me, a forgiveness issue. Because I get that question all the time, like, how do I forgive my husband? He keeps doing blank. It's like, no, that's not a forgiveness issue. That's a boundary issue. You haven't set boundaries or parameters for which to operate in your relationship. And so hence why you need to constantly forgive. And having to constantly forgive the same,
it's exhausting.
Exhausting is the right word.
Yes. So tell me your definition of forgiveness.
The definition of forgiveness for me is when you feel at peace. And I believe there's 5 stages to forgiveness, and it's a nonlinear process: shock, anger, grief, acceptance, peace. Shock, anger, grief, acceptance, peace. And it doesn't mean one day you're in shock, the next day you're in anger, the next day you're in grief. It's nonlinear. It's like it's up and down and all around. And and I believe each of us, our process is as unique as our fingerprint. Everybody's different, you know. And I think the 2 hardest places or stages of forgiveness are 1, anger, Either you struggle feeling anger, or you struggle feeling angry all the time, right? And then what's under anger is grief. And to me, grief is the gold. Grief is the most transformative property I believe anyone can experience when you allow yourself to grieve. And I imagine you have all your ideas around this as a thought leader. And sometimes we think that, you know, if we go through these stages, we'll come out on top. I don't even know if the ultimate goal is to forgive. To me, the ultimate goal is to feel peace.
Yes.
And however you want to label that, you get to decide. And I think there's too much pressure on, like, I gotta forgive him, I gotta forgive him. And I want to say, why? Who cares? This is an internal game. It's more about, do you have peace around this?
Yes.
And if the answer is no, let's do some exploration. Right?
Yes. So I love that. So the way you put it out, to me, I think it's very similar to my definition, because it's actually acceptance, right? We just accept. I have this favorite mantra. I came up with it. I don't know how, but I love it. I say, you can't expect a cat to bark. Cat meows. That's it. If we expect a cat to bark, we are literally putting ourselves for failure, right? We are just resisting. We are wanting something that is to be different, and that's not even possible. Like their wiring, whatever is going on, their childhood trauma has made them who they are right now, and that's what they know best. So we're going to accept them. And as you said, after that, we're going to set boundaries. But that acceptance and releasing resistance, that to me is forgiveness, right?
Yeah, that's so great. My version of that is, you can't buy milk at the hardware store.
There you go.
No milk. Your cat is not going to bark. You can want it to so bad. Want it, but it doesn't work that way.
No. I sometimes say, can you expect a tree to come out and dance for you?
Yeah.
No, a tree is a tree is a tree is a tree, right? Yeah. Love that. So what are some of the health benefits of forgiveness or acceptance?
There's a ton. Well, first of all, peace. You actually feel peaceful, right? A little more comfortable in your skin. On the realm of, when I look at like disease conversations, forgiveness lowers your blood pressure. It actually shifts and changes your penchant for heart disease. So when we have a hardened heart emotionally, we actually cause a physical hardened heart. And it actually harms us in terms of heart attack. So it lowers blood pressure, it eases anxiety, it helps with mental health issues, because a lot of our mental health stuff can stem from past childhood abuse, which I know a lot about. I'm a product of child abuse. And all diabetes, it impacts diabetes. There's even been studies on how it impacts Alzheimer's. There's so much research about the physicality of being able to forgive. And the one that I love the most is your emotional stability, or spiritual stability, because it allows you to have more access to flow and your emotions and your ability to be intimate, because it all goes together. And I love that you said joy, because joy is I love joy. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come play with you, Dr. Arayeh, is because of joy. And joy is a choice. It is a choice. Even if you're having awful circumstances around you, you actually, when you choose joy, even if it's for 2 minutes, to say, that flower is lovely. I know I had 5 people die of COVID. It's so hard. It's all these things. I'm going to enjoy and feel joy from this flower for 2 minutes. Changes your brain waves. It changes the neurological pathways in your brain, because not choosing joy is a habit, just like choosing joy is a habit. These are habits that we can ingrain for ourselves. And the habit, and the habit of forgiveness deeply impacts your physicality.
Exactly. So as you said, our brain is wired for mind wandering. It is wired to keep us protected. So we're always looking for stuff that are not going right, while there are a billion things that are going wrong, right. And we are not focusing on that. As you said, it becomes a choice, and then it becomes a habit. The more we choose it, then the more we get wired for it, for some reason you get frozen, but you're having me, right?
Yeah, you come in and out with me as well, and I'm just gonna trust that that's the way the internet's working tonight.
Okay. All right. Okay. What is the hardest part when it comes to forgiveness?
I would say that transition in those phases, the transition and dance between anger and grief. And I would like to introduce another dichotomy, which would be what is the distinction between grieving and suffering? So let's say you finally allow yourself to grieve. Sometimes we get stuck in suffering and we think we're grieving, but we're not. And suffering is more about complaining, like being upset about politics, okay? And upset, especially if, no, I don't want to go into that with politics. If you stay focused on the upset and the constant story and complaining, that's suffering. It reminds me, years ago, I come from an alcoholic family system. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I come from an alcoholic family system. And of course, I married an alcoholic because we repeat our generational patterns, right? I know you teach this. And what would happen is all the women would get together on Friday night, meaning my sisters-in-law and such, and all the men would be drinking and drunk, and us women would get together and complain and bitch, excuse my language, about what a horrible week we had, what it's like being with an alcoholic. And all that happened, though, by dumping that out, allowed us to go another week of the same interactions, the same behavior, the same everything, because we knew we had that Friday night to release it. That to me is suffering, because it's not causing anything new. It's the same conversation. So suffering and complaining are very, very different. Grief, like I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, we put our dog down, okay? Our little Fergie, she was 14. And actually just before I came on this call, they brought her ashes, okay, in a little urn. And my husband says, I'm going to take this outside. Fergie was like me and my husband's little baby. She really was. And I said, you know what? I don't want to look at the urn right now because I don't want to step into the grief. Because I know as soon as I start talking about it, it's so fresh that I'm going to feel grief. And grief looks different for everybody. If you would have caught me at 3 o'clock this afternoon, I was laying on the floor sobbing, okay? You would have caught us yesterday when we put her down. It would have been really sad to see. Today, it's a little better because she's been in hospice, so I've been able to grieve the last few months knowing that she's going to be passing soon. But even talking about it right now, I'm very present to grief, right? Be very different if I were saying, it's so not fair. The vet should have done this. He should have done that. She was on this drug and that didn't work. And then we had her do chiropractic adjustments and that guy was a jerk. Very different energy versus saying, I miss her. I wish she were here. It's so weird to have somebody come to the door and my dog not bark. I've had her for 14 years, it's really sad. My husband's outside at the fire with her ashes right now. It's sad.
Oh.
This is what grief looks like and feels like. And one of the things I noticed, Dr. Arayeh, is to actually model it, like in a video like this, really gives people access, because access and modeling really show us that it's okay to feel this way, that it's actually beautiful and it's actually intimate and authentic. And I know authenticity is so important to you. And yeah, and allowing yourself to let it be there.
Yes, I love that.
That would be the hardest thing about forgiveness for me. Yeah, is allowing.
First of all, I'm so sorry I sent him right.
It's a her. No,
I'll send her tons of energy. But
it's a little girl, little Fergie. Yeah, little girl.
So I believe kind of what you just said, because you're accepting her passing and you're just going through grief without judgment, without resenting. So suffering is kind of grief with resentment, right?
Yes.
And it's not even the feeling. Like I believe I am agreeing with you completely, because usually we're in our heads, we're thinking, oh, why this happened to me, and we feel like a victim, and we ruminate about these thoughts, this victimhood position. But while grief is in our body, we just connect our feelings in our body, and we just move through them, and we just dissolve them. And I know you have an academic degree. I do too, but I haven't found this. I've seen it a lot of places, but I haven't found it. I've searched so much in academia, but I haven't found the exact peer-reviewed article. I've heard that the maximum duration of each feeling is 90 seconds. If you
Yeah.
truly feel the core energy of the feeling, it will dissolve.
Yes.
Maybe we won't get to peace right away. Maybe we'll, as you said, anger would transform to hopelessness, then it will transform to sadness. Each one will go like 90 seconds, but at the end, there will be peace. There will be that oneness consciousness and just acceptance and observation, non-judgmental observation, right? Have you heard of that 90 seconds anywhere?
I have, and that's one of the reasons why many of us struggle with allowing grief to just be, because we think it's going to last forever, and because in the past we haven't dealt with stuff. So then grief today with Fergie, if I hadn't been grieving the last year of my mother passing and stuffed that down, Fergie's death would be much bigger, would feel much bigger. Because when we stuff all that other stuff down, when it actually erupts, it feels so big. But that's because it's like barnacles on a boat. They harden and they get stuck. So when you do have an emotion, it feels so big and so outrageous because you haven't been allowing it all along the way. And it's a habit. It takes a conscious, concerted habit to allow feelings to come. And the beauty of this is when you allow that grief to come, you're very quick to joy, man. You accept everything.
Exactly. Look at that. You have actually joy right there. I just noticed it.
Joy is over my whole office. Yes,
So
I love
cool.
Yeah.
So when you brought up grief, I was actually wanted to bring it up and I forgot, and I remembered again. So you can be in grief, but you can also be in joy. Like you're
Absolutely.
like, sometimes I'm sad, but I'm not suffering. Like I feel joy when I'm sad. It's so amazing because I'm actually feeling so anything in the present moment, whatever it is, if we accept it, we are in joy.
Yes.
Even if it's pain.
Yes. Because this is life, and accepting life on life's terms.
Yes. Yes.
You know? And I feel like an expert in this. The reason, and from personal experience, because just before COVID hit, I don't even know if you know this, my mom, my dad, and my sister, that's my primary family, they all died within a short period of time from cancer. Okay. And this was just before COVID hit. And my mother died in January of last year. So then sitting still for this last year has been one of the greatest gifts of my life, the greatest. And it's all these other pieces. And I keep saying, okay, when it rains, it pours, with Fergie passing and more tragedy. I'm just going to add it in here just to level out the playing field. My daughter was 6 months pregnant a few weeks ago, and she lost her baby. So I was just with her in Florida. There's nothing like watching your daughter hold her dead baby. Okay, like seriously. I know, it's shocking. And then I look at all that I've been through on my personal journey of grief, what I've gone through with a mother that I hated and loved at the same time. My mother was very abusive. And here I am with my mother, her only caretaker, a whole journey on its own. And I feel like my mother, in her last year of her life, deeply prepared me to be there for my daughter. Because my daughter was in high grief. There's nothing like watching your child wail and sob with grief. And to be able to be there and witness it and hold space and love her and know there's a hole there and there's nothing you can do except be with her. That is a gift. And I learned how to do that from the tragedies that occurred in my life. And I like to think about that they happen for me rather than to me. And I know you probably already teach this. This is happening for me because I feel like there's nothing that can shake me anymore, like nothing. Business deals, look out, I'm gonna close you, okay? Like when I work, because I work with a lot of corporations, zero fear, because I've learned this, I've learned to be with my grief. I've learned to be with me at my worst, in my most pain, in my most hatred, and my most rage, and just be with that and embrace it. And so your mantra of like accepting the moment and being with it, you are so spot on. You are so spot on.
I'm so sorry about all these predicaments you've had. Oh my gosh. Oh,
It is a lot, I know. It's a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my mom had to travel. Her sister, my aunt, is having this grave disease, and she's having so much pain. And so this is what I told her. I said, you go back home, you say nothing, you just love her, kiss her, put your hands on her back. That's all you do. Just be there with her. And that's exactly what you said, what you did with your daughter. You were just there, and we don't want to fix things, and we just want to be there and create a condition or create a space, allow a space for them to just move through their grief, as you said.
And you know, the other reason, Dr. Arayeh, that I say this is because everyone that's watching, they've got stuff. We've all been in COVID. We've lost people. We've struggled with paying bills. I know there's many people that don't have jobs and have to figure that out. Being a mom and maybe managing kids at home and working at home, oh my, that's enough to tear your hair out. Is it fair to compare what I went through? No, we all have our own stuff and our own journey and our own hardships. And I really believe, that's why I'm talking about it. I believe everyone has their own trauma pain that they're going through right now. Their fear, family losses, whatever they're going through with COVID, not knowing what's going to happen next. If they're renting, what's going to happen to you next month if you don't have your rent? So there's so many pieces to this. Plus the world is globally, collectively grieving. We've just had another mass shooting. We've had all this racial strife. We've had all this political strife. So much has happened to all of us. We're in like this global grieving. And I just want to validate it, you know? I want to validate it because it's real.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I want to talk about workplace a little bit. I know it's a little bit of like higher energy,
Yeah.
but tell us a little bit about that. How can you, because I was in the corporate world until 6 years ago, and I had a problem with my boss, and what are your best tips of forgiving and accepting in a workplace?
Yeah, work is a toughie. And I have to say, I got to shout out General Motors because General Motors is like our biggest champions. They love the work that we do. We do trainings all through corporations, and General Motors, though, has embraced us the most. They're so progressive in allowing this conversation in the workplace. Because here's the thing. What if you're working with someone, you're both up for the same job, and he gets it, and now you got to not only work with him, you got to work under him, and you hate his guts, right? Like, how do you rectify that? How do you deal with it? And the way that we do it, one of the tools that we use at Project Forgive is the conversation of accepting the apology you'll never receive. And it comes back to neurological pathways. And where this came from is from my neighbor. I have this neighbor that drives me crazy, okay? I just look at him and I just want to go, oh, you just have some people you just want to smack, okay? It's not acceptable for the forgiveness lady to smack people, okay? Or anybody else for that matter. But like what he'll do is like, I'll go out to get the mail and he'll say, good morning, Dr. Shawne. And that's how he talks. And I'll just go, ugh. And I'll say, yeah, but Bob, it's 6 p.m. And he'll say, I know, but you look like you just got up. Like that's the kind of stuff he says to me. If you've ever watched Schitt's Creek, it's like Roland on Schitt's Creek. I live next door to Roland, okay? And he drives me crazy. So I said, thinking about this for a second, how am I practicing what I preach? Am I practicing what I preach? And the answer is no. And so this is where the tool came from. So it's called accepting the apology you'll never receive. So as soon as I see him, in my mind, he is not saying this, I'm pretending that he's apologizing to me. So there he is, he says something really off the wall weird. And I'll just say in my mind, he's saying, oh, Dr. Shawne, I did it again. Sometimes when I get social in front of social situations, I say really dumb things. I'm so uncomfortable. I get nervous. And the last thing I want to do is offend or push people away, but I seem to do just the opposite. I'm working on it. Will you forgive me for saying that? That was so awkward. And of course I say, of course, I'm so easygoing. I really am pretty easygoing, okay? And so as soon as I started doing that, every time I saw him, I never had an issue with him again. I really didn't. Took practice, because I had to keep pretending he was apologizing, in the way that our brains work. If we think it, it happens. Just like if you think of a lemon, you're gonna have a lemon in your mouth. If you think someone's apologizing to you and they're not, it's gonna feel like they're apologizing. It really freaking works. Now, okay.
The mind believes whatever we tell it, right? That's what's going on, whatever we tell it. So we better say good things to our mind.
We might as well.
Yeah.
And why not pretend an apology? Why not put an apology in your brain? And he's not gonna do it. You can do this with past abuse. You can do this with a cell phone company that won't give you back your money. You can do it with your partners. Like if you're stuck with your partner on an issue that you just can't find a resolution, you can keep pretending in your mind that he's apologizing. And what happens with this tool is you start to soften. Yeah. Your heart starts to soften. You start to open up. And the miracle of it is, though, once you soften, that's when the solutions start coming forward.
Yes.
Because when you're in it, you're upset, you can't see any solution to solve it. None, right?
I love that you said that. So I have this question. Did it get better? Did he get better? Like when you had that attitude, that low, high vibration, did he change his attitude at all? Did you see that he was, like you were affecting him kind of in a indirect way?
Yes. Because here's the thing, if I'm annoyed with him, chances are most people he encounters is annoyed with him, because he's going to do that. How we do anything is how we do everything. Sherry Huber coined that phrase. So if he's doing it with me, chances are really high he does it with a lot of people. So he's used to people being frustrated with him, annoyed with him, irritated with him, pushing him away. And I didn't need to do that with him anymore, because I rectified it internally. And he naturally fell into place with me, and it's really sweet now. It's really.
I love. So this is the beauty of it. So we start from it. That's how the outside becomes a mirror reflection of the inside. So if I am not getting, icky inside of me, right? I'm not attracting ickiness. So that's how we start from within, and I love that. So that's the apology tool, right?
Yeah, it is. We have no control over older people. No, I have no control over Steve and what he does or doesn't do. Where I do have the power is right here. And whatever I feed myself or tell myself, or whatever habits I create. Because I really believe your day-to-day habits dictate your future, right? Because if you want to lose weight, you can be upset about losing weight, you're not losing weight. Oh my gosh, I ate that ice cream. And if you have the habit in place of 30 minutes of exercise every day, you are not in the mindset of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ate that ice cream. You're in a very, very different place. So our habits really dictate what we're creating in our life. And the habit of people apologizing to me, which I do with most people, okay? I didn't do it this morning. I had a mammogram appointment, and the lady was so rude. She's rude every year. She's memorably rude, okay? And I told her this morning, I said, you know what? I dreaded coming in here today. I didn't go into you, because it's not about being a doormat, okay? There's no doormat involved. I said, every time I come in here, I've been coming here for 6 years. It's so painful to interact with you. And you know what? I'm leaving today and I'm not coming back. That's what I told her. I told her that. And I really am one of the nicest people you will ever meet. But you know what? There was something about today that I said, I can't come to this place anymore. No. They're so crappy. Their customer service is crappy. She's crappy.
You put a boundary
to deal with. And who knows, maybe having that conversation with her will actually jolt her. Who knows? But I know I'm done with that mammogram place. I'm done. I got a new appointment. I'm going on Friday. I don't want that in my life. It doesn't feel good. I felt like a doormat every time I'd go in there because it felt bad. So it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to say stuff that isn't deemed as, you're not a nice person. No, I'm a nice person who didn't want to be treated like a doormat, and I spoke the truth.
Yes.
That's what it looked like today.
That's what a healthy boundary is. Like, you are honoring yourself more than to be treated that way, right? So it's I'm sure you weren't cussing at her, but you were just you were firm. It's like, you know what, I'm not coming back. So maybe, as you said, maybe she takes it as a sign. So
yeah, but you know what the good part is that whenever I find myself because I was in the situation and I was going to get a mammogram right then and there, I would have preferred just to not have to share that with her and just say, I'm not going back there. So what it's going to make me do in the future, because of my experience this morning, is to look, do I not want to go to this place of business? Do I not want them as a vendor? I really don't even need to tell them. I just can switch. This morning, it was important for me to tell because there was no way I was going to go in there and take off my clothes and get a mammogram. I just couldn't do it. So I had to have that conversation today. That just felt right. But in the future, I'll be better at it. That's how you learn too, you know?
Yes, yes. So I want to let you go, but I want to ask you one last question, because it's so important for, especially, people who are busy, parents, at work. What is your best tool? I know the apology tool is really amazing, but it needs a little bit of awareness, a little bit of practice, a little bit of mindfulness. What is your go-to tool for people who are still not, don't have that muscle yet? What is your go-to tool in the moment? What do you recommend for in the moment? Someone says something bad, or your child says, I hate you. What is your go-to tool for that moment?
Yeah. And what it would be is, especially if something that you can't forgive yourself for, like, the self-forgiveness is one of the hardest things. If you can't forgive, you just can't. The first step is asking yourself one simple question. Can I forgive myself for not being forgiving? Mm-hmm. So if I'm really angry at that happening right now and I just want to smack them, I might say to myself, you know what, Shawne, this is where you are right now. Can you forgive yourself for not being forgiving right now? And my answer most of the time is yes, and that will immediately soften. So my mantra, my go-to is, can I forgive myself for not being forgiving? Because that's actually the start of a forgiveness process.
Yes, all forgiveness.
And let it be okay that you don't feel forgiving. It's okay. The world's not going to end. Yes. Yeah. You know, it's not going to end. It's just a feeling in this moment.
Exactly. I remember at the beginning of my conscious parenting journey 6 years ago, I went to the spiritual guru and I said, I've been teaching this for 2 years. I feel like a hypocrite. I yell at my kids while I teach parents not to yell. He said, you're a 2-year-old who wants to be a president. And you know what was happening to me? Like, I got mad over me getting mad. So it's like, it's like a double anger. So you can't forgive, and then you don't forgive yourself because you're not forgiving. So that is, it's the second arrow in Buddhism, right? There's the first arrow and the second arrow is me. That is just,
yeah. Especially if being a good person is important to you. And I imagine that's what you attract, people that really care about the community, the environment, how we interact, integrity, authenticity. Good people care about being a good person, and good people sometimes have to forgive themselves for not being forgiving, because we're not Jesus or Gandhi or Allah or Buddha. We're not. We're human beings having a human experience. And I believe our full purpose for being here is to forgive each other. And at the highest level, I don't even believe forgiveness is necessary. That when you really see that, like my mother with child abuse, she was abused. Doesn't make it okay.
No.
She didn't have anything else.
Yes,
exactly. Like to really be in that place with my mother, And as a matter of fact, show this one thing that I keep, one other tool that I use that really works is this is what's on my desk. Okay. You can see it. That's my mother. The 13-year-old is my mother. That little 4-year-old is me, and my grandkids still laugh saying, Grandma, we thought you were blonde. No, I'm not an original blonde. But I put this picture is on my desk to remind me that this 13-year-old raised this little girl. And it brings up joy, tears of joy, that how hard she worked to parent me with such little skills that she had.
Yes. She was 13.
Well, she wasn't 13 when she had me,
Wow.
but her skill set never went above 13, I would assert. You know, very narcissistic, typical abuse, typical alcoholism, typical incest behavior. I come from a very incestuous family. And I've had to come to terms with a lot of that. You know? And the conclusion is my mother did the best she could with what she had. And it's a very beautiful, peaceful place.
Yes. So one of the things that helps me a lot with these kind of situations is kind of taking a spiritual aspect where my soul calls for these parents to my life to create a scenario for me so I can grow, so I can know myself, so I can find my gifts and offer the world. So it's kind of like that. That's the way I treat it, or I teach it. Like, you know, you ask them and they said, are you sure you're gonna hate me for it? But you said, you know what, no, please, I really need the scenario, I need to learn. So are you sure you're gonna hate me, you're gonna forget you asked me? And then, no. And they loved you so much that they agreed. So that spiritual aspect of it is really, I think, powerful as well. It's really empowering. It makes you feel like, okay, you know, everything, as you said, happens for me and not to me. I created this for me to grow, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shawne. This was delightful. I love you so much. I send you so much love and healing light to all the, you know, past souls. I keep them in mind in my prayers in the morning. I love you, and I hope I see you again. Come back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.